Okay, now let's look over some lawsuit data. This is the best lawsuit report I have come across. This is from Ecomback. And by the way, I had the president of Ecomback on uh, about a week ago, and it's on this latest video I've tabbed to now, semi-controversial ADA website lawsuit discussion. There were a lot of points where Nyan, who is the president, um, Nyan is outspoken, and that's one of the things I like about him is that he says what he thinks, and he will definitely go into a room of people and tell them the exact opposite of what they want to be the case. So Nyan is a good guest. He's a really good guest, and so his company Ecomback puts out this report, and we went over it in the video, but I wanted to get more into the numbers. So let's do that now. So one thing that stands out right away: lawsuits surged 37% in the first half of 2025 as litigation expands across states and industries. Note the expansion into other states. This is no longer about just California, just New York, and just Florida. This is becoming, this is this is this is going across states, becoming more of a nationwide problem. And it is a problem because this is serial litigation where, for the overwhelming majority of these cases, this isn't about where someone could not access some part of a website. This is where plaintiffs' lawyers are just suing people over and over again, and it's the same plaintiffs. So here we see 37%. That is a huge, huge number. In recent years, the lawsuits have actually plateaued, but here we can see this is not the case. And one interesting thing that Nyan said, and by the way, Nyan talks to Nyan's more in the network. I'm not really in the network. I just read and look at the data and look through complaints. Nyan, he's actually talked to plaintiffs' law firms. Nyan also he's very much in the he knows the behind the scenes of this industry. And so one thing he said that I thought was very interesting was that for every for every complaint that is filed in court, a good way to estimate the number of cases or the number of website owners that have been sued is to multiply that number by 7 or 10 or 7 to 10, and that's how many demand letters are sent out and these matters are resolved before a complaint is ever filed. So this is a lot more prevalent when you hear these numbers and you hear just, okay, 4,000 a year. That's not that many. It's actually much, much more than that. And so it could even be higher. But the point is that this is affecting a lot of business owners. So here we see just some executive summaries here. We have Illinois surging up. And then, of course, we've also seen, what is it? Is it Missouri? Yeah, I think it's Missouri that has been, some cities in Missouri have been, have seen have seen more litigation of late, and that is because other plaintiffs' lawyers are entering this space, um, and that's just what happens because, especially when you speaking of attorneys, many of them have difficulty. There's not always a lot of legal jobs available. So what's happening is, I think some of the newer plaintiffs lawyers in this space are taking it up because it's, one, so lucrative, but then two, it's an opportunity, whereas there might not be one otherwise. But there are probably 40 to 50 plaintiffs lawyers in this space. So that's quite a lot, especially when you consider this is all some of them do, or it's all some of them have like a complete division of their a law office or their law firm where they are only filing complaints. So here we see repeat filers dominate. The top 31 plaintiffs and top 16 law firms drove the vast majority of cases. Then all platforms are at risk. And then I will tell you that Shopify is what we see the most. We get a lot of Shopify store owners that are after audits, sometimes before they've been sued, and then sometimes after. The good thing is that more people are finding out about this, so more people are reaching out to me before they're actually sued. And then we have global pressure mounts with the European Accessibility Act, India's mandates, and the Los Angeles Olympic accessibility commitment. International momentum is shaping the digital accessibility landscape. Yeah, I don't know exactly what that means, especially in the light of these lawsuits where we're looking at the serial litigation. Maybe, maybe that's just speaking to like overall, like there's just more momentum to accessibility. But of course, this is specific to website accessibility. I think it's also important for people to know that this is beyond websites. Many people focus in on websites, but this is digital assets on a whole, right? So web apps, mobile apps, software, and so other different types of web assets, etc. So it's not just websites, is my point. So here we can see the states, the total lawsuits involved. By the way, this is not the annual report. This is the mid-year. We have New York at the very top, Florida, California. Those are the three usuals. Then Illinois is really surging, 237, whereas California is 380. New York 487, New York 637, Florida 487. Then we have Minnesota, Missouri. I mentioned Missouri earlier, and Pennsylvania. So again, more states. It's not just those big three, and it's like, I mean, this is just going to continue. We're going to see more and more states, more and more lawsuits. So let's go ahead and scroll down here, get past some of this initial data. So here we have a breakdown of the 50% were filed by 31 plaintiffs. So yeah, like I said, this is serial litigation. This is just happening over and over again. It's not, sometimes clients come to me and they're asking about specific things, and I let them know that it's usually not about, it's not about a technical instance of accessibility, because they'll tell me, well, we can do this, or this wasn't this way. And I let them know it's not really about one specific thing. This is a plaintiff's law firm. They are looking for ways to sue you. They're not looking for ways to not sue you. They're not looking for things that could be favorable in a certain light. They're just looking, hey, do we have accessibility issues here? And then they will target a website owner. So here we can see some of the plaintiffs, some of the plaintiffs' lawyers involved, familiar names over and over again. Let's see. So more on the concentration with a few law firms. Industry trends. So we see the top category being restaurant, food, drinks, and beverages at 30.49%. Then we have lifestyle, clothing, and apparel. This matches up with my experience. We get a lot of clients in both of these industries. Then beauty, skin, and care is at just below 9%. So, but restaurants at 30.49%, clothing, retail at 28.8%, and then it continues on down from there. But just because you fall into a lower category, don't let that lull you into a false sense of security. It's not that the plaintiff's lawyers are limited or they only target certain types of websites. This is just the trends. This is take the trends part of this quite literally, because it does not stop there. And we could easily see this trend change. Next year, there could be a trend where, let's just say, fitness here is at 2.53%, and then fitness becomes the go-to target. So it's somewhat arbitrary, not completely here. We can see the data is strong, and this matches up with my experience. But just to let you know, like if you're in one of these other categories, it doesn't necessarily mean that like me personally, knowing what I know, just because I wasn't a restaurant or I wasn't a Shopify store that sells clothes, I wouldn't feel a great sense of relief just because I was in one of the lower tier percentages. Let's see. So we see the common reasons for ADA website lawsuits. Missing or incorrect image alt text is number one. That has been number one. That's the champion. That's the reigning champion for the longest time, is missing alt text. Here we have inaccessible forms, keyboard navigation failures. So what does this tell you? This is going beyond scans. So for a long time, and this is probably still the case, there were some defense attorneys that are they're focused in on scans. So you've got to evolve, because the plaintiff's lawyers have. And how do I know? Because I've looked at what they they file in their complaints. So if you look at their complaints, that gives you as good as it gives you a good as good of data as you're going to get, right? Because we're looking here at their actions, and their actions say this is what we are looking at. So when we see keyboard navigation show up here at, I don't know, it's on the top row, presumably let's just call it number 3. We also have lack of focus indicators. These aren't issues that scans are going to flag. And so what's happened is that plaintiffs' lawyers, they'll have their own teams. So they're literally, I mean, you have to remember that, as Nyan said, this is hundreds of millions of dollars at stake for these plaintiffs' lawyers. Do you really think that they're going to stop at scans, and if a website has 0 errors on a scan, they're just going to pass this by? No, this is printing money. So this isn't a matter of, oh, we're just only going to look at scans and nothing more. No, they are recruiting teams. They will recruit people with accessibility backgrounds. I know, I have been recruited myself. I've received an email. They asked me if I wanted to join their team in so many words. My point here is that this is not just about scans. So many people are focused on Google Lighthouse, for example, with Shopify stores. It's not just Google Lighthouse. It's a start. Think of scans as a start. And I would recommend that your scan errors be down to 0. That is going to reduce your risk of having a demand letter sent to you or having a complaint filed against you. But that's not the end. Okay. So it's just part of it. But because there's so much bad information, some people think that that's where it is. It used to be that way. It used to be that if you had 0 scan errors, you probably weren't going to get sued. That just didn't come up. But that's not the case anymore. So you have to keep that in mind, that plaintiffs' lawyers evolve. They're more sophisticated now. It's not going to be as simple as, oh, we've used Wave and you came up with 0 errors, so we're not going to look at you anymore. That may be the case for some plaintiffs' lawyers, but not all. And when there are tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, they're going to make sure to invest in this because this is a very real business for them. So keep that in mind, that it's not just about scans, but of course, you'd want to have your scan errors down at 0. One thing to note here is that there are inaccessible PDFs or documents also on the bottom of this list. And then here we also have pop-ups and overlays without accessible control. So it refers to cookie banners, chat pop-ups, and promotional overlays. So this isn't speaking to overlay widgets or custom overlays for accessibility. This is just about general overlays. So the prime example being here a cookie banner. Okay, well, if you have a cookie banner, just know that that's part of your website. Plaintiffs' lawyers are going to look at that. And so we want to make sure that it is keyboard accessible, it's WCAG conformant, et cetera. And just because it's a third-party integration, it doesn't mean it's separate. If you're using it, then it's going to be something that plaintiffs' lawyers are going to look at. So let's continue on. So widget use fails to prevent ADA lawsuits. Here we can see once again, the paragraph reads, despite having accessibility widgets installed, 456 ADA lawsuits were filed against websites, making up 22.64% of the total lawsuits. This emphasizes that simply adding an accessibility widget is not a comprehensive solution to web accessibility and compliance. And then it adds a more thorough, proactive approach is necessary. So it is so important to know that widgets are not going to prevent a lawsuit. And they don't. I mean, it's just shown over and over again. We see over and over again. We look at the complaints. We can read word by word from the plaintiff's law firm, right, that the widget actually made the experience worse, or notwithstanding the widget, or whatever it is. So many people, and this is in part because there is so much bad advice, and we can look it up on YouTube. In fact, I might do that. I'm going to add that at the end of this video. Maybe if I don't, I'll make an additional video later. But there's a lot of bad advice of people talking about widgets. And one thing that bothers me is that people act like there's some type of in between where it's like widgets do part of this or they increase your coverage. No, I don't know where that comes from, right? With widgets, they either are going to stop a lawsuit or they are not. And because they are ineffective, they don't. And not only because of that, but to continue on with my point, just having a widget installed can actually draw attention to you. And Nyan and I talked about this in the video I mentioned, which I'll link to in the description. So don't use an accessibility widget. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will get sued, but it's not a stopgap. It's not a temporary solution. People come up with these narratives in their mind where they think it's like there's something to them. There's nothing to them. It's not. Someone the other day posted on LinkedIn that they said that they didn't know that it only fixed 30% of barriers. I think was the term they used. No, it's 0%. If it's not actually fixed, it's still zero. So the problem with overlays is it's just a script, and it's rendering superficial adjustments on your website. Those adjustments are not permanent, and they are not active. So someone has to activate the widget. It's problematic. Read overlayfactsheets.com. That will give you more insight there. But the point is that they're not stopping lawsuits. Here's the data. This is the data. So sometimes clients are resistant to this. I don't know why. Overlay widgets are there's something about them that people really want to believe that they actually work. Here is the empirical data. This is from a firm that has researched this. They researched it extensively. That is why I'm recovering this report, is because the report is so well done. It's methodical. And so here you have this actual data. All right, so let's continue on. And we have the FTC settlement undermines widget quick fix claims. So here it reads, the risks of relying on accessibility widgets were underscored in 2025 when the FTC reached a $1 million settlement with Accessibility, one of the largest widget providers. Regulators found that the company had misled businesses by marketing its overlay product as a guaranteed ADA compliance solution. So if you haven't looked into the FTC settlement, look into that. It will give you a lot of information on just what is going on with widgets, what they say, what is actually the reality. And then there are some really interesting comments as well. So if you just look into FTC accessibility, not accessibility, accessibility, you can read more on that. So here we have 80 website lawsuits by platform. Shopify, at no surprise, is at 32.42%. Custom coded websites at 34.731%. It's not that if you use one platform or the other that it's going to stop a lawsuit. It's just that some more businesses that are targeted are built on certain platforms. So Shopify stores are frequently targeted. It's not because they're built on Shopify, it's just because they're e-commerce websites. So keep that in mind. It doesn't, like, let's just say you look at this and you see 2.98% for Squarespace. Just because that's the case, it doesn't mean that using Squarespace is reducing your risk. It just means that less of the types of websites that are targeted are built on Squarespace. So there is something to take away here, but there's nothing here where I would say, oh, we just build your website on this platform and then you're in good shape. That's not the case. Now, some platforms are more conducive to accessibility. What you'll want to look for, though, beyond just any accessibility features, do you actually have code access? That's what you need to pay attention to. So look and make sure that you have full access to your code. Be especially wary of this or aware of this when you are using website builders, because they might give you the ability to change the content, move it around, drag and drop, but you won't actually have the ability to make changes. And you need full code access. That's where a lot of problems come in with the third-party integrations, is we don't have full code access. And in fact, usually we don't have any code access. We can just make customizations. So then we get into the global trends in digital accessibility snapshot. And then, okay, so that's really most of the data here. It's a really good report. I'll link to it in the description. If you need help with website accessibility, one, you can reach out to me for an audit where we are going to find the accessibility issues and then we will help you fix those accessibility issues through validation. We can also offer user testing. This is extremely compelling. This is what I would want to have. If you're a website owner and you're concerned with getting sued, user testing is extremely valuable because then you'll have documentation of someone who is blind or visually impaired. And most of the plaintiffs in these cases are blind or visually impaired. You'll want to have evidence of someone who is able to use your website with a screen reader. Nothing, you don't come across any issues in their experience. This is extremely compelling evidence. It's really good to have. One other thing, if an audit and remediation is outside of your budget, I highly recommend my ADA compliance course, because in the course, I tell you exactly what to fix, exactly what order, how to find the issues, how to fix them. I talk about strategy. I also have the War Room strategy session. This is 2.5 hours of behind closed doors consultation that um, I do not like, unless you're a client that's paying me $395 an hour. This is information that is not on YouTube. It's not on accessible.org. There's a lot of stuff that I cover that is behind the scenes. That the War Room strategy session has that. I will link to that in the description as well. The key is to be proactive, to not get a widget. Remember that widgets don't make your website accessible. They don't make your website ADA compliant. They don't make your website WCAG conformant. And that is why so many accessibility professionals talk against them. And if you go to overlayfactsheet.com, you can see this for yourself. I will link to Overlay Fact Sheet in the description. But be aggressive with this, be proactive. I think what happens is sometimes website owners do not think it can happen to them. It absolutely can. And if you read Reddit, you don't have to believe me. You can read Reddit and you can see just endless threads, endless comments in talking about SEO, talking about Shopify, talking about small businesses and restaurants. And in all of these different subreddits, we see the same thing happening over and over again. I was sued. I was sued. And we don't want to get to that point. And then people start talking about the law and people talking about how unfair it is. That's really irrelevant because we just don't want the lawsuit to begin with, right? We don't want to receive the demand letter. We don't want to receive the complaint. And that is why you need to take action as soon as possible, immediately. Just get this done. It's something that you'll have to get through anyway. Just do it. The fastest, most aggressive approach you can take is with my course. And so if you go through my course and you just start making changes, it's not perfect. You're not going to end up in WCAG conformance, but as you are fixing accessibility issues, you will reduce your risk of a lawsuit, because we're going to make sure to fix those issues that show up the most in complaints. And so this is all research that I've done, looked at the complaints, extracted all of the issues, put them into an Excel spreadsheet, and then tied the issues with the success criterion, and just look at those issues that are claimed over and over again. We want to fix those first. So there's definitely a strategic component of this. And then the other part of the strategy is everything else in play. So defense attorneys, like if you've been sued, you need to hire a defense attorney. I talk about that in the War Room. I also talk about the marketplace and how to make sure that you're spending on money on things that actually help you versus things that are marketed to help you, but they don't actually help you at all. There is a lot of lies, or there are a lot of lies in this industry, and there is a lot of deception. And this happens every day, and people waste their money and they do not know it. So that is part of the reason I go over these reports. That's part of the reason I have over 500 videos on this channel, is because this is information that needs to be known. Once you know what to do, it's so much easier to proceed. It's not as confusing because we're not looking at widgets and AI powered this and then software and scans and all of these different distractions, when the signal is that we are working towards full conformance, and we're doing it in a strategic and purposeful way, and we are being aggressive. It's not about buying a widget. It's not about using a scan. It's about full WCAG conformance. And when it comes to website accessibility lawsuits, The way we go about full conformance matters. We want to reduce our risk as we are proceeding. And so that is what I talk about in the war room strategy session. And that is what I get to on the technical side in the ADA compliance course. So I recommend them both. And if you are looking for full conformance, then you can reach out to me at accessible.org, and we can talk about an audit and also validation. So making sure that your team actually fixes the issues, and when they fix those issues, that they resolve them. So that's in play as well. And when you're tracking full conformance, we have accessibility trackers so that you know every single issue in the audit report, the status of that issue, and you can account for it, and you can know your accessibility compliance progress. You can see all the percentages and how far along you are and how much further you have to go. We're adding project insights to this, by the way. With project insights, you will be able to estimate when you will complete your project. So everything here is designed to align you with WCAG conformance, but when it comes to ADA website lawsuits, we also want to reduce your risk as you are working towards full conformance. So this is an excellent report. This is from Ecomback. I will link to this report in the description, as well as these other resources.